Why do we only hear of priests messing with small boys but never girls? There aren't many girls for them to have easy access to. Altar boys are very available. There is a documentary about the convent school or something similar, and it was a girls' school, so in this case it was girls. It's probably down to access. To my knowledge, most youth church positions are for boys, and that access is likely a big reason why. Messing around with boys doesn't lead to unwanted pregnancies, aka evidence of their sin. Most priests learned this from boarding schools. A lot of indigenous children were raped. They either died from birth or their babies were murdered. I just saw an article recently about girls who were sexually abused by nuns. I'd just like to point out that being gay and being attracted to children are two entirely different things. Gay men are not more likely to be pedophiles than straight men. Because people are less protective of boy children. This isn't just an issue in the church. Overall, in the USA, the vast majority of children sexually abused are boys. So it's access. Easier to manipulate because they think they are complicit in some way. A pedophile who rapes boys isn't gay. He is a pedophile. Priests very much abuse girls too. They traditionally have easier access to boys because of altar boys. I also sometimes think that little girls are so frequently sexually abused that boys being sexually abused by priests gets more attention because it is more taboo. Either way, I grew up in the church and unfortunately know multiple girls who were molested by priests, so it certainly happens. Boys can't get pregnant. Altar servers were boys. Altar boys. And priests targeted them because we were supposed to follow what the priests told us because they were the leaders of the church. Girls didn't become altar servers until years later. At my church, girls started to serve in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Luckily, me or my brothers weren't molested by any priest or church members. But if someone did that to my sister, I'd gladly go to hell for punching them. There are stories of priests messing up with underage girls. But I think that they are not so frequent as when they mess up with boys. I do not really know why. Perhaps there is more pedophiles that prefer young males rather than females in general. Or this preference only applies to clergy. It could be that availability of boys versus girls has to do something with it. I think it's more about them being children than the fact of them being a specific sex. There is a continuous circle of abuse. Victims may turn into abusers to gain back control. Especially when it's part of religion, the normal rules don't apply. Guilt, shame and ignorance are powerful tools. Historically, the priesthood has been the #1 safe haven for homosexual men. There's a great book about it. In the Closet of the Vatican. People needed heirs. But nobles also needed influence in religious matters. They sent their sons that were less likely to produce heirs to serve the church. Predators often put themselves in positions to get what they want. Jerry Sandusky and Dennis Hastert come to mind. Some priests who sexually abuse children are attracted to children. Some are opportunists using children as surrogates for the sexual partners they can't have. That's not a direct answer to the question, but I think it's important to consider. Maybe priesthood proportionally attracts more gay men. To a certain extent, this was true in Ireland and probably other historically conservative countries, where there was a lot of pressure on young men to marry and provide grandchildren. At the time, homosexuality would be seen as sin and not something you could be open about. And a lot of gay non-pedophile to be clear. Men were ushered into the priesthood so as not to have to bring awkward and shameful questions upon the family. Bearing in mind, in terms of absurdity and sin, homosexuality and pedophilia would be a lot similar today. There were also a lot of consensual gay relationships in the priesthood at the time, which was never actually exposed and aren't now because they were consenting adults. So what's the problem? If you were a straight man who liked underage girls at the time, it was a lot easier to hide as you were at least the right orientation and could maintain a relationship with a woman as a cover. The girls have nuns. A Catholic man who sexually desires women can get married. A Catholic man who desires other men goes to hell. I think some men become priests because they believe they can control their desires in a strict environment. That's because nobody will let a little girl alone with a man. In my own experience, girls were around the priests less than boys. And when it comes to homes and schools, nuns were often in charge of the girls.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.